Hey guys, and welcome back to the Playmaster Plus channel. This video we're going to be doing something quite different from normal, as I wanted to try out something fun and needed something I could get out relatively quickly without spending tons of time on writing a script. So what I decided to do, as a little fun thing, is to bring up a Petscop iceberg that someone made that they called an in-depth Petscop iceberg. Now, long-term fans of the channel will know that I've been obsessed with Petscop for a long time. I've made plenty of video content on the web series, so I thought it would be fun if I would go through this iceberg and see how many things on it, like how many entries, I know off the top of my head or can explain just by reading the phrase and thinking about it. The rules here are if I don't know it, do have to go and research it and then explain it briefly based on my research. If I kinda know it, I'll take my best guess, but I'll probably confirm it. And if I'm really confident that I do know it, then I'm just going to explain it right away upon reading it. So yeah, this will be fun. You can kind of just follow along, see how many you know if you are a Petscop fan. So yeah, let's see how many we can get. First up, we have here on the very tippity top layer, Petscop isn't a real game, and this can only be referring to the fact that Petscop is a created game by Tony Domenico specifically for the Petscop web series. It isn't an actually found like game or anything. Like the found footage isn't of a real game that's for sale or anything. Uh, this will tie into Garalina. That's the company that made Petscop in universe. But once again, Garalina isn't like a legitimate developing company in our reality. That's why I like relating Petscop to an alternate reality game. And while some people disagree, I do think it fits enough to be an ARG. Paul, he's our main protagonist who's playing the game in a lot of the entries we see and is kind of narrating the whole experience for us in his nice, nasally little voice. Pen is deaf. This is interesting to me that it's in the very top layer, but Pen is one of the pets that can be caught in the game, and when you read their descriptions, it mentions something about Pen being unable to hear the music or something to that effect that insinuates he can't hear or is deaf. And with that comes attached something. I think it says like, I don't know why he's here, which I related to music being an integral part of the rebirthing process. And if these are supposed to represent or eventually reform to represent kids that Marvin or Daniel were looking into rebirthing, if music is an integral part of that, if they can't hear, it's pretty much like a useless kid to pick to rebirth. If that is sort of what the gift plane or even care section sort of to represent kids, which I think might be an entry later, if my eyes have seen it, then yeah, that's what that's talking about. Nobody Loves Me refers to the NLM thing where we see the care sheet A, B, and NLM. This is pretty well known in Petscop. It's basically the three stages of a traumatized kid. The first one's a perfectly normal, happy kid. B is like a kid that can be salvaged still, like they can be healed up. And Nobody Loves Me, or NLM, is when the kid is beyond saving. And many people, or I don't know if many people, but Tiara seems to insinuate that kids can be psychologically damaged beyond even the rebirthing process being able to be fruitful. And Daniel/Rainer has made it clear that he believes people can be mentally traumatized beyond ever being the same ever again. Amber, Pen, Randus, Tonith, and Wavy is up here as well. Those are all 5 pets that can be found in the even care realm, specifically. Well, the gift plane realm specifically in even care. I said that backwards. Game came with a note. Paul mentions this, I think, right off the bat in the first episode. Came with a note that said "for you" with instructions as to how to access the dark part. And it's probably written by Daniel, meant to be seen by one of the family members that this copy of Petscop is supposed to be given to. Tool. This is like a red, sort of looks like a piano all. It's actually right here in the iceberg image. But you can ask it questions, and if that question is in like a certain bank that it can respond to, then it'll respond with a short phrase. And Paul spends quite a bit of time interacting with this. I don't know if this is on the iceberg because it seems like something that would be, but it does seem like Belle/Tiara is capable of altering it through the certain mode of Petscop you can access where you can alter textures and stuff. Petscop 16 is, I believe, the Petscop episode with the Ghost Room, which reveals that the player of Petscop, which is probably Paul that they're watching, is being monitored and forced to keep the console running at all times, which is pretty valuable and I think insightful as to how other people in the series have been operating their Petscop game throughout the years. We have a date here, 6/13/1997. I believe this is the date or one of the dates written on the note that came with the game. I think that's where that comes from. There's a lot of dates in this game, but I'm pretty sure that one's on the note. I'm confident enough that I'm just going to leave it at that. Newmaker connection. I think this has to do with Candace Newmaker, who's the little girl who died in a terribly tragic and entirely preventable manner due to just straight up adult cruelty and negligence. So like, it was just a very sad thing. But obviously, the darker plane of Petscop is called the Newmaker plane, and they have some connections to and like parallels within the story to the situation of Candace Newmaker, that being the suffering of innocent children at the hands of unfit adults to be in their care. And that's basically about it. Shadow Monster Man. This is something that Daniel says. He refers to himself as becoming a Shadow Monster Man, I believe. Yeah, it's right in the note. I turned to the right. He went down a staircase. Instead of proceeding, I turned the right and became a Shadow Monster Man. And also the player avatar can be in Shadow Monster Man form. In my theories, I've always said that it's representing what they appear like to the kids, like what they've become in their basically their evils or wrongdoings. And I think he uses that label to describe both himself and Marvin, who's like one of the main antagonists. Book of Baby Names. This is towards the end of Petscop. That's finally unlocked, but you're unable to access it before completing the game, basically. And it's just a credits scene, and it has a little note from Anna to Mike at the end of it. That's a dead kid. That's a famous quote that Paul says after seeing Mike's gravestone over next to Kare's shed. Belle reborn as Tiara. That is a very, it's not even a theory. I think it's straight up said basically, but Daniel tried to rebirth a girl named Belle into Tiara, and he does not think it's successful, whereas Belle seems to insist on being called Tiara. Loading screens. There are many loading screens within Petscop. A lot of them have to be brightened to be seen fully, and they don't really have any big reveals, but they have like small hints or clues or just kind of different angles or looks at different parts of the Petscop game. Do you remember being born? Now, this is a question that is asked. Oh goodness, where is it asked? I know it's a question that is asked in Petscop. I think it's supposed to harken back to the rebirthing process thing. But yeah, I think the whole significance of it is like nobody remembers when you're born. It's kind of a ridiculous question, but everyone is born regardless. And you know what? I think Tiara asked Paul it on the very last episode. I think it appears maybe somewhere else before. I'm pretty sure she says, Paul, do you remember being born? In any case, I also think it's used to insinuate rebirthing shenanigans in many instances as well. Strange situation. Now, this is something I explained in more detail in one of my videos about Petscop, as it does relate to a real-world procedure regarding like parents or adult guardians or adults and how children react to them. I don't remember all that off the top of my head, but strange situation is like the word literally just leapt out of my head. It's a game state that's way more difficult than I thought it would be. It's a game state that Petscop can be in after triggering a certain event, in which case things do get a lot more strange. What Petscop episode did this happen? And Paul was able to access it, and it's more weird things are revealed, especially regarding the Mark House in it. Demo recordings. Petscop will show demo recordings quite a bit, usually replays of past controller inputs, sometimes play it like an accurate reflection, sometimes showing something different, which starts to get into the layer of Petscop where you're really also doing something else, where you're doing one thing, you're also doing something else. Basically, it's kind of confusing, but the demo recordings can sometimes show like the other side of that coin when you see them. Pets equals playtesters. I can only imagine this is referring to the fact that the pets found in Petscop are meant to represent kids that playtested the game, because in the credits section there does seem to be a lot of like children that they playtested the game on, something that I included in the fanfiction novel I wrote about Petscop. I can only imagine that's what that's referring to. We're now into the third tier, so things might be starting to get a little more obscure here. Gift plane equals heaven. Oh, and we'll kind of pair gift plane equals heaven and new maker plane equals purgatory together, and school basement equals hell. This gets into a more metaphorical or representational theory of what the realms or parts of planes of Petscop are meant to represent. The gift plane being heaven, I think, is already way too much of a stretch because it's in disrepair. Like, people have moved out, there's minimal pets left, it's unfinished. A lot of the pets there don't seem to be in a happy position, like, especially Amber is highlighted to, is shown to have a psychological issue. We won't get into that, but I think this is very loose connections just because it doesn't quite make sense. New Maker Plane being purgatory is kind of like whatever because it does kind of trap you in that Mark / Hammond family drama and turmoil. But school basement being hell, I mean, sure, because that's where Marvin supposedly had care held up for a while or something, you know, bringing kids down in there to do the rebirthing ritual. It's too metaphorical and doesn't line up cleanly enough to be true, but I think that's what they're referring to. Child library is something that can be found in Petscop, where you can drop off care after you catch her, and it's sort of like chat sizes you. Is that how you say it? I always feel like I mess up that word, but it basically taunts you almost for giving her up. It's like, oh, you know, you're the new maker. You could have like turned Care B into Care A or something. That might be a different part, but basically it's one of the many representations in Petscop of like a child adoption system or dropping off system, you know. Rebirth, I'm surprised rebirth is this low because it's a huge massive element in Petscop, whether it's be rebirthing other people or the concept of someone coming back, almost like a reincarnation stylistic belief, but it's a heavy theme in Petscop. The game is alive. Now, this has got to be referring to a theory that the game does call itself, or someone calls Petscop an organism in the notes, whoever wrote it, probably, whether it be Daniel or someone, because I believe someone's editing the game, but that's a whole different rabbit hole to explain. I think this is kind of more referring to that the game is alive is interesting because usually you hear more AI interpretations of it, but I think is that Petscop can learn and react or adapt to whoever is playing it, making it feel alive to some capacity. Daisy Head Maisie is another sort of real-world illusion that Petscop includes by, I believe, writing words on the wall. What does it say? Like, alas, good grief and alas, I think. There's a reference to a Dr. Seuss book called Daisy Head Maisie, where a girl sprouts a daisy in her head and it causes all sorts of trouble for her, and it's parallels with Kara's situation in life. Petscop Family Tree. Now, there is a part in Petscop towards the end of the series where it reveals a lot about the family, like who is who has what last name, or how they're related. I think that's what that is referring to. The Hammond family and the Mark family intersect. The Leskowitzes. I feel like that's just what that's talking about. Dead dog on the wall. And now, guys, this might be the first one that I actually have to look up to give a straight answer for. This triggers some memory deep within me. I think I know about the dead dog. It says something about it's hanging on our wall. Oh, it's at the tip of my brain, but it's just not there. I think I do have to look it up. Because I remember people were like, oh, what is it hanging on the wall? I think I explained it off as a picture or something. But you know what? I don't know it well enough that I think we do have to look it up. So, Petscop dog hanging on wall. Oh, it's in Tona's description. This thing is such a mind trip. Has broken leg for some reason. I already hung him on a wall too late to take it back. Oh, yeah, because Tonith has his leg broken. Yeah, that's why. So I almost remembered it, but not quite. It's supposed to represent a dog who has the limp, and you know, Daniel wanted to put it down, but no one else did. I theorize the dog is directly led to Mike's death, which is Daniel's younger brother. Yeah, hung up the picture. I think it has to be a picture. It wouldn't make sense to hang up any sort of dead dog on the wall. Yeah, unlike you can see in this Reddit post where someone's kind of just like analyzing it from 7 years ago. Dang. Yeah, I think it has to be a picture. I think that's what I said originally, and that's what I'm sticking to. All right, human trafficking There's a lot of tones of kids being mistreated and even the whole kidnapping thing. This could, I think, I'm not going to look this up because it's probably just theory territory, but I think it's meant to imply that Petscop either in universe has a broader kidnapping and exchange thing going on than we maybe realize, or that it's supposed to be tied to some sort of real world human trafficking. I think we're probably going to get to some theories insinuating that Petscop might be more real than we think. But we're on to the fourth layer, so let's see how just obscure the stuff is going to get. Leave PlayStation on. We kind of talked about this way earlier with, I think, way back up with Petscop 16 when we talked about the ghost room. But for some reason, the overseers, people want to. Are people calling them the proprietors? I feel like someone big on YouTube called them that, but they are forcing them to keep the PlayStation on at all times, basically, because Petscop needs to be running because a lot of random events happen and there's no real through line to a lot of triggering a lot of stuff. So to find all its secrets, you kind of need to leave it on at all time. Tool colors, I did mention this a bit earlier too. The tool will turn from red to pink, and we think is the one editing that. However, I will say that there are blue tools in drawings everywhere, which is weird because we never get a blue tool iteration. So that could be referring to that too. Um, yeah, who knows? Marvin picks up tool, hurts me on PlayStation on. That's something that Bell or the pink text says in the tool. A lot of people have taken this to kind of think that maybe there's an alive consciousness, whether it be AI or paranormal literal, within the game. But I just think it's Belle's warning for Paul to get out of this, like, because it feels like she's never wanted him to be as involved with this as she is, especially because her game has been the one running for 17 and a half years. So Anna cheats on Marvin with Rainer. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I've never heard this theory. It has to be a theory because it's never ever explicitly said, or I don't think implied really at all in Petscop. It's got to be just one of those theories, and I don't know exactly what the connections are for Anna cheating on Marvin with Rainer, or what that would imply. Like maybe it's trying to say Carrie or Paul is actually the kid of Daniel, which wouldn't make sense. I don't know. That's a weird theory that I don't think really has any merit to it. Sheriff Domestic. This is like a spoof series off Petscop that I've never watched, but I've seen around. People, have chatted about it in my comment sections before. Connecticut. This is actually where Petscop takes place, as we can see in, I believe, Petscop 16 as well, because of a phone number area code, I think. And then in the soundtrack website thing you can go to, Connecticut is listed as a tag. Tarnacop. This is the machine Petscop's created on, and it seems to be like an in-world computer type machine thing that we can see it in game. It seems to be Daniel created Petscop on. Paul and Kara are the same person, and oh boy, is this a popular theory that I got a lot of flame for disagreeing with in my big Petscop theory video. Now, I'm going to just take this opportunity to explain something about Paul and Kara being the same person and why I didn't go with that interpretation. I don't think this is per se a wrong interpretation, in the fact that I do think the narrative of Petscop is strongly, if not very heavily, implying that Paul and Kara are the same person to some capacity, which almost deters me from believing it more, just because a lot of this is about being deceived, like the riddle about the windmill, the whole situation revolving around the windmill, the belief in the rebirthing process, which the game itself seems to not believe in, right? Which is, again, I go into more detail on all those in my actual videos. So the very fact that the game so strongly implies it, to the point where it's getting a little weirdly direct, almost makes me want to be wary that it is the actual truth, combined with the fact that, to me, and I know other people have provided defenses for why it makes sense, and I don't think that's wrong per se. Like I said, I do think it's implied, sort of, so I don't really think it's a bad theory at all. It's probably a good one and might even be overtly correct. But I wanted to go with a different interpretation due to the logistical nonsense that I had to kind of sort through to justify it, and just the strong insinuations towards it within Petscop that seems to try to trick you about so many stuff. So many stuff that's not even grammatically correct, you know what I mean? But that being said, I think it's a very, very sound theory, and probably even likely. Stravinsky's Septet second movement. This is what Daniel played when rebirthing Belle into Tiara, which and I think that serves as like sort of like a motif for her in some instances. I think, um, and it implies I think that specific songs are tied to specific people for the rebirthing process to be a success. Hypnotizing children. Now, I'm going to explain something kind of specific with this and a bit more broad after. So there's a certain part in Petscop where it seems to try to be like brainwashing you into thinking you are Carrie Mark, which is a whole can of worms we discussed in one of my analysis videos. But it also could be a broader thing of like the entire game was designed to rebirth someone, or simulate a rebirthing process, which I think isn't really true, but there's a element of truth to it in the fact I think the game is trying to prompt whoever it can to solve the mystery. So even if they're not Carrie, it's trying to put them directly in a Carrie state of mind, or force Carrie to reckon with her past, um, or dig up the memories of Paul if you believe Paul is Carrie, which many people do. So yeah, Kara's locked in the closet. So when Marvin has kidnapped her, Daniel kind of eventually helps her escape, and he mentions opening like a closet door or something like that, and the light falls on her face and she runs away. I think it's just referencing that moment. Kara's tortured in the basement of the school. I don't know how far the word tortured is meant to be taken here. It's definitely torture to be kidnapped by your own father, brought down to the school to quote unquote study, which probably means get prepared for being rebirthed into a dead childhood friend of his, potentially be having your eyebrows plucked out or other physical manipulations. That is all torture, which that we're directly told happens. So like it's kind of just is what happened, but it depends if this is taking it farther, as I know some people like to make the extent of the crimes worse than what Petscop implies in some respects. So it could be just talking about that. Every copy of Petscop is personalized. Now, this I think is true. I think Marvin, Belle, and Paul all have separate games, sort of, because their avatars are all different depending on who they're playing. So and I believe they're all playing together. Personally, a lot of what I'm saying has more context in my video, so you kind of know what mindset I'm approaching a lot of these topics with. But I do think every Petscop copy is personalized to an extent, especially across the years when Rainer was gifting them. Human fusion. Now, guys, I think we have reached another point where I need to look that up. I think it has to be a theory, but I don't really know what that theory entails. So let's see what we can find on the internet. Human fusion Petscop. We'll just type that in simply so we can find. The iceberg itself comes up. Let's say Petscop human fusion theory. Let's see if that comes up. No, the iceberg again. Interesting. So I can't really find it. So I'm going to take my best gander, because I don't think I've heard a Petscop theory directly called human fusion theory or talk about it specifically. I know people like Nexpo have suggested it's like extracting consciousness somehow into the game from its players, like a Soma situation. It could be referring to something like that, like fusing human minds with the game. Once again, that's weird. I don't. That's interesting. That's on these icebergs, and that's kind of one of the fun things, like little brain tickler on these icebergs, is you find something that like isn't easy to uncover on the internet. So you're like, what? What was the iceberg creator thinking when he wrote this? The sign, Ace of Base. I love this actually. Petscop 21 is synced directly with the sign by Ace of Base, which became one of my favorite songs after realizing this. Because I actually didn't know the song. Petscop helped me discover the Ace of Base song. So, yeah. That's really, really cool detail. There's so many things that line up with it. Marvin beats his wife. Now, we do know Marvin and Anna's relationship was in shambles towards the end of their time together, and I don't think there's no evidence, I think, to explicitly say that Marvin beat Anna, but he certainly, living with Marvin in his psychological state has to be mental abuse at the very least, even if Marvin isn't directly trying to be malicious towards Anna. He is a very mentally ill person for a lot of their marriage, especially after they have Carrie. So yeah, I don't think there's any evidence to say that he beats her, but their marriage was not healthy. Petscop is a trans allegory. This is referring to the theory that Petscop is, well, first and foremost, we should say that this is sort of a different interpretation of Paul and Care are the same person, where instead of Care or Paul being like the rebirth version of Care or being like a memory suppressed version of Care, it's either Care like shifting over into a boy because Paul seems to be male. That, or it's like the other way around, where the I think this might not be exactly this theory or allegorical thing that's talking about, but I know a lot of people have suggested too that perhaps uh, Carrie never existed and Paul was born, but they wanted to have a girl because Marvin wanted it to be closer to Lena, and so they pretended Paul was a girl and stuff. So it's all just, there's several different theories regarding to gender shifts or transitions or changes within Petscop. There's different threads of evidence that people have pointed out. But for me, it's kind of in the same boat as Paul and Kara, the same person in any interpretation, where I prefer to have them as separate characters just due to some what I find to be logistical issues or hurdles in a coherent timeline, especially with how human mind works or certain aspects of memories or just the interactions we see in Petscop. But yeah, it's a theory that's closely related to Paul and Kara being the same person. Marvin is a I don't know how much of this I can say without getting like flagged or demonetized on YouTube. So you can see it right there, and I'm sure you can infer what it is through the blurred out thing I'm gonna do to it. But I mean, we can't rule this out technically because we know he was obsessed with Lena, who was a 9-year-old child when she disappeared, and he's obsessed with rebirthing her, which is going to be through children. I personally don't think he was this in like an active way. I can definitely imagine Marvin having more like fantasy elements since a girl he was obsessed with was 9 and she disappeared. He's never been able to get her out of his head. I think all of his conquests regarding children is strictly about rebirthing them, and that's more about the mental breakdown and reemergence. So I don't think this was what Marvin was doing specifically, but he was a sick individual when it came to children. So like, I'm not defending Marvin. I'm just saying I don't think he was this. Kara is hit by a car. So I almost wonder if this is meant to be Lena is hit by a car and not Care, because I don't understand in what capacity Care would be hit by a car. There's many. I mean, this could only be thinking that because there's many allusions and hints to a car accident of some sort all throughout the Petscop episodes. I can only imagine this is saying Care was the victim. I don't know when it's saying that would have happened to her, or what, like, did she die? I've never heard people talk about this. And Lena, well, I don't think she was killed by a car at all, is a far more probable aspect. I think it was Mike who died by the car, but Lena's far more probable than Care. I almost wonder if this is meant to be Lena's hit by car, because Care being hit by car, I don't think any theorist thinks makes sense. Marvin is the good guy, and this is like almost never ever seen as a theory. But I think it's kind of playing into this sympathetic part where like Marvin lost his friend, and he's just trying to bring her back. And in a weird world where rebirthing is 100% true and Care is literally meant to be the reincarnated version of Lena and she just needs that push to become her, I still think Marvin's a good guy the way he goes about it. This has to just be like insanity if anyone actually believes this. Paul was kidnapped by the Mafia / Garolina. The Mafia is a wild thing to say. I think he's 100% taken into the oversight. Am I using oversight correctly? He was taken into under the watching eye of Garolina, or what I think is like some remnants of the Garolina, or someone who used to be wrapped up in it. Oh yeah, I don't know why Mafia is here. It's kind of weird, and it's another one of those theory things. I'm like, this has just got to be like a crazy either just term being used very loosely, or Paul has been dead the whole time. This could wrap into the Paul is an AI from the beginning theory, which is absolutely absurd, and I think something game theory proposed or something like that. Uh, or that he's like possessing the game to some extent. I think a lot of the supernatural theories have been kind of less accepted recently, or at least in my side of things, because I'm a heavy proponent of nothing supernatural occurring in Petscop whatsoever. But I think this is one of those series where either Paul died and is possessing the game, and we're kind of like seeing an immaterial ghost play through it, or it's an AI of someone who used to be alive kind of thing, and he's really been dead. Whether or not you think Paul dies at some point in the series is different than this, which is another whole thing. I don't think many people really think that happens either. But yeah, it's one of those interesting, oh, what if they were dead the whole time kind of theories. Petscop is a documentary. uh, this is something, if you ever see Mega Gandor in the comments section, he likes to joke about this in Petscop. I think it has to be the idea that Petscop is far more based in reality than we believe, and it's actually more a recounting of events that either actually transpired for the creator, or someone the creator knows, or the creator somehow knows something that happened. And it's far more real in our reality than we take it credit for, which is obviously it's quite clear this is a fictional series, but I mean, the Mega Gandor commenter guy calls it a confession all the time. So it is this one of those theories that like, hey, what if this is more real than we ever thought? And that's the end of that iceberg. I'll have to look up two of them. And one of them I kind of half knew. Human fusion theory, what I expect is a theory. I don't know. If you guys were around if that was ever conceived, please let me know what it actually is. I took my best guess at it. But I actually do have another Petscop. I found two big Petscop icebergs. And we're going to see if any entries are on this one that weren't on the other one. Color theory, this is pretty much simple. The text is clearly correlated with certain speakers that are represented by certain colors. Where is Petscop 2? Pyro Cynical made a Petscop video that got like millions of views back in the day, and he never really made a proper follow-up video, so it's a joke like, where's Petscop 2? That goes around the internet quite a bit. Pet theory, that's super broad. We discussed a lot of pet theories in the last one though, so you can, have your pick at one of those. Catching Ronith. Ronith's room is the one where you have to enter the code to do the dark part, and you need the bucket, which Paul figures out after encountering the bucket down below. That's how you can actually catch it. We talked about Bell being the pink tool. Censored map. There's plenty of censored things in Petscop. Perhaps this is saying one of the things of censoring was a map, I'd imagine. Growing organism, we talked about that. We kind of talked about the generations. Oh, Oddcare. Oddcare is the fan name, I think. I don't think it's official name of Evencare after it gets in this altered state at one point. User PAL or PA Leskowitz, which people think it stands for Paul Leskowitz. This is kind of what started it all, realistically speaking, with this post. People use this as evidence that Paul is a Leskowitz, or for different interpretations of certain aspects of who Paul is exactly in the family line. Rainer committed self-exit game. That's made pretty clear through the bathroom tune segment and different hints throughout the series. Hudson's kind of deep cut. It's one of those almost like prototype or unfinished models that we see in one of the Petscop things where you're going through like files and whatnot. I'm probably not saying that properly, but basically that's what's happening. Jill is evil. So Jill, I think, is heavily implied to be one of the proprietors, or one of those people overseeing Paul's gameplay. I think kind of hinges on what you think her motivations or role in the story is. But yeah, if you view her as the whole group being antagonistic, then you could probably subscribe to this. Paul Scary talked about. Marvin has Toneth. We kind of see Marvin in like a cutscene present Toneth to us, which we then go and catch, which is weird. Something that I've never really talked about at length. I've always that's would be interesting to think about a little bit more, to be honest with you. Um, Anna's flower. Oh, I feel like I know this. Oh, yep. At the bottom of her notes, every time has a note, it's almost like a stamp or like a mark of hers. It's a little flower, which could correlate to her daughter Care being associated with daisies and flowers. Could just be a parallel or harken back. Um, Now I see something on this layer, which is of this new iceberg. Man, I can't speak today. New iceberg, second layer, says Dorito dial. I don't, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look it up to be sure. But there is this little, in certain aspects, there's this little red dial thing that goes kind of crazy. When you're walking, Rocket Place. I believe it's mostly shown in the demo recordings. When you go in like the school too, I think. I'll look that up just to be sure. We'll count this as a lookup. Because I've never heard it referred to as a Dorito dial. Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, it's kind of explaining just kind of how it works. It doesn't seem to be anything crucial or big to the lore or anything, which is why I never talked about it at length before. But yeah, I never knew people were calling that the Dorito dial. Is that like an official name, or is that like of like what this is? I don't actually know. Perhaps I'm dumb. I've never heard that referred to as a Dorito dial. Interesting though. Eggs. This is part at the end in the locker with Belle. We see a Belle egg, and we see Care get turned to like an egg that they put with her afterwards after Paul plays the Paul's melody, and so the melody is supposed to do. Every copy of Petscop is personalized. Really, it says in parentheses. Who the beep is Ciara? Who the bleep is Belle? What's the difference? But to be honest, this is just being, I think, kind of being funny for the sake of it, because that's a lot of questions. I explain who I think each of these characters are in my big theory video, and if you want an even deeper idea of my thoughts on it, you can read my fan fiction novel. But yeah, they're just very vague characters. Door puzzle, that's a riddle that I also explain in my videos. I think is closely related to the disappearance of the windmill. Even Care's symbols, those symbols are directly correlated with white blocks that seem to show you certain areas that are like connected. Like I was saying earlier, you can be doing something in one state of the game and it's also doing something in a different state of the game. I think that's just one of those instances. That's what it's referring to. Your new life lighter is found in the locker with the egg, with Tiara's egg. And I think it's part of the psychological manipulation of rebirthing to make kids believe they are someone else. Paul is in a car. Yeah, it's weird. We do hear that Paul is indeed playing Petscop in a car, and he does lie about it at one point, or maybe he actually wasn't at that point. I don't know. It's kind of confusing. But I kind of written it off as him being forced to still play it during transportation to the school where he's forced to a ghost room. So I don't know. Could be that. Chronology of the episodes, that just is referring to the fact that the episodes are out of order as far as like actual timeline placement, PlayStation language. That could be referring to many lingo involving PlayStation, or the fact that Petscop has its own dialogue system. Bleep bleep bleep. That's a file name that you can find in one of the recordings within the Petscop game. November 11th, that's the day that is completely unaccounted for. Care was missing on this day. She was not in her father's possession, nor was she in any other family member's possession. Nobody knows what happened to her on November 11th. That's what everybody wants to know. Not even we get to know. We can only guess wild guesses because we don't have really much evidence at all to where she was or what transpired with her on November 11th. It's quite weird, and it's quite one of those haunting mysteries for me because there's so little information that there's no realistic way you can believe you actually know it, you know? Caskets, something in Petscop 20, and if it seems like I'm giving very shallow explanations for a lot of these, it's because they're just different parts in the series. Like, they're in an iceberg form, but a lot of this is just if you watch the Petscop series, you'll see all of this, and the obscurity level is mostly just like, do you remember it happening or not? So a lot of these I am kind of breezing by because it's like it's literally just in the source material. Like if you watch enough of it. But I guess the challenge is to see if I know what the heck they're talking about just based on the phrase. Talked about ghost rooms. Your child page is a website that was supposed to be, well, fun fact, if you didn't know, Tony Domenico was going to release this website with the game, but decided not to because it like revealed too much or it showed too much of his hand when it came to the story and stuff, and he wanted more ambiguity for more interpretation, which I think was the right call for the fun of this series. But yeah, work zone. Is that referring to the state that gift planar even cares in? I'm gonna have to look that up. Another one we get to look up. Work zone Petscop. Oh, the second, yeah, not much to know about this level. It's impossible to access it in the gift plane. Really, this is called the work zone? Is that a fan name? I don't think that's an official name. You just see it on a loading screen. Yeah, it's shown in the soundtrack too. This had to do, I think this was directly answering our riddle, a door from different perspectives. Weird thing. I love these pictures though. These are some of the most haunting moments in Petscop where there's just such little context for what you're seeing. Neat. See, I'm learning stuff. I never knew that was called the work zone. Ever. Rainer is evil. So Rainer is Daniel, and Daniel is the creator of the Petscop game in universe. Tony is the creator of Petscop in real life. Daniel is creator of Petscop in universe. This is basically just saying he's one of the bad guys. He's either working with Marvin, which we do have reason to believe he was working with Marvin earlier. I think he kind of detached himself from that and then went on to work against Marvin. So yeah, you could say he was evil for a bit. But I mean, all these people have been traumatized, up the wazoo. So I'm not saying it's justified what they do, but you can kind of see the line of psychological decline in all of these characters. But yeah, they do some evil stuff. If you count Rebirth and Kids as evil, which seems like it is, then yeah, he was at some point. He also offed himself, which isn't a nice thing to do. I don't think that makes anyone evil, but the man was not in a healthy mental state, and neither was Marvin, which if you want to shoo him in as an antagonist as well, then sure. But I don't think Marvin is like the real evil around in the series. Meaning of pieces, okay, so you collect pieces throughout the Petscop game, and you need them to trigger the machine or create the machine. We don't really know why they're called pieces. Like, I think it's just meant to represent as all like the parts to assemble it, right? But it's ambiguous like everything in the series. So Michael's death, we kind of briefly talked about this. I think he was hit by a car after the dog ran into the road. He chased after it, but people argue about it, different things. Chorus, yeah, this is weird. There is a scene. Is it Petscop 11? There's something like no. Is it Petscop 17? I don't know. That doesn't matter. But you can hear a chorus before it changes. I think it's before it changes into the strange situation state, which makes me think it might be, I don't know, forget the episode number, but I'm pretty sure. Other counselor minigames. So we see the Gravedigger minigame in the counselor room, but we don't get to see any of the others, and it's always really bothered me. I want to know what the others are like. If Gravedigger is like that, what do the other ones do? Because you are able to pick them, but we just don't get to see. Power to Raise the Dead. Recordings can do that in a way, they say, which I think is just meant to show that the recordings are eternal, even though the person that played them are dead. Well, then not literally eternal, you know what I mean. They can outlive the person that played it. So we can see what people did. It's sort of like they're back. It's kind of creepy. I don't think it means, some people take this phrase too literally, in my opinion, and they think there's different paranormal things going on. But I think it's just, the metaphorical way. Accident, symbol, and nifty. I know what nifty is in Petscop. It's like a button it's a reference to a different work by also the creator of Petscop, by Tony. But in the nifty state, you can edit the textures and stuff I was talking about. I don't know what the accident symbol is, so we will look that up. Accident, symbol, Nifty. Let's go. Well, the Nifty video comes up. The reading this, the accident. There is an accident game. It shows the interlocking shapes. There is a whole debate on what those shapes mean. Um, so is that shape in Nifty then? Interesting. I'm not entirely sure what that's trying, like the full extent of that's trying to imply, but if that image shows up in Nifty, that's weird. I don't exactly know if that's what it's saying all the way, but that would be weird. That's because that symbol is something that bugs me. Because it also shows up on that window type thing when you're walking around on that grassy ledge. Really weird. Paul Morse messages? Does Paul give Morse messages in Petscop? Hold on. I didn't know about this. What? Well, that was AI. Does anyone? So that doesn't even. It didn't even tell me what it was. So, I mean, the AI, the AI thing seems to think, oh yeah, there is Morse code, but that doesn't provide any answers. That Reddit post and nobody gave an answer for. I don't hear people talking about this. I'm not sure if it's true. It might be more of a theory. If it is true, no one that is popular has really talked about it. Yeah. Weird. I think I'll have to leave that one as a interesting thing, but ultimately one that isn't really like real. It might just have been an idea that was put there. Starting to think about that. I think in 2 instances of the game, so you should start to think about that. Or you should think about that or something. Or I think that's referring to. Because like you should think about that. It's in like the Amber message, and it also harkens to the egg with as either carriers you're born to or something. Because we're someplace safe. I think was that Amber in the egg. I think I'm on the right track there. I'm gonna say I am, but okay. Photos scattered in graves. This sentence is one of the most frustrating things in Petscop to me. It says, now they won't even let me see her face, which is Daniel referring to Carrie. They're all scattered. They won't even let me have a picture of her now. They're all scattered in graves. Huh? We know Rainer went grave digging, which is how I think he figured out the ultimate fate of Lena and where she was. Because I think he dug her up. But graves is plural. As far as we know, there's not enough dead kids in this series for Rainer to go around digging, or Daniel digging around in a bunch of graves. And since he was just talking about photos, it seems like those might be the context for this sentence. And it's like, huh? That doesn't even make sense. Why would photos be in graves? It's weird. It's weird. I think it's a lot of the series is trying to be vague. I think it's just supposed to be like Lena is like, Kara looks like Lena, so digging her up is like digging up a photo of Care after he was ostracized from the family. I don't know. The timeline of it is weird. It's messy. That's just a weird sentence. But yeah, because then he does show up on like Christmas when he goes to say goodbye to life in the bathroom, and Anna seems to be being like amicable to him at that point. So I don't know. It's weird. Maybe they just wanted to completely separate it of Carrie. I think it could work into my they got Carrie the heck out of there theory too. which if you want to hear more about, you can listen to my big theory video. But happy birthday. There's many talks of birthdays in Petscop. It's kind of a theme. But there's a happy birthday Michael thing. There's the birthday scene during the strange situation because Care kind of like returned on her birthday, question mark, if that's to be believed. Blue tool, we talked about that. I'm glad it specifically says blue tool because barely anyone talks about this. The blue tools are drawn all over drawings and stuff, which is weird. Reaching for your shoes, it's just a small line in the counselor room. It's talking about all the little things that will be there for you to try to comfort Carrie in the wake of the trauma she suffered. Bill. I want to know what this is. I feel like in my soul, I know what Bill, in regards to Petscop, might be, but I need to look it up. Simply, Bill Petscop. What? Wait, huh? Is this a tweet from Tony? This. Just kidding about that build nonsense before. There's no such thing. Nevertheless, here's a sprite of build I have just made. Wait, is this Tony joking about it like a character that's gonna be? Yeah, because like it's sort of like Belle with the hair and the face, but it's like a weird dude. Just kidding about all that build nonsense from before? Was he just joking around about a fake Petscop character? Bill and Hudson's excellent adventure. I can't believe I haven't heard about this before. Dude, on Scott Goth and crap right now. Also, I just had a horrible voice crack or something. I'm not editing that out for your enjoyment, but holy. Interesting. I don't know why Bill resonated with me when it came to Petscop. There was something like internal that like for some reason it resonated with me, but I can after seeing this I can tell you like that like I've never heard of this before, but it's funny that's like a joke with Tony. Interesting. Here I come, something Marvin says in Petscop 23, very menacing, and I think it implies real-time interaction, and then Marvin going to hunt down Paul for whatever nefarious reason. Another thing we talk about in my theory video I keep constantly self-advertising. The Thomas appearance. So Thomas is mentioned like once in the series during the whole family tree thing. And I just think he is Jill's husband. In my big theory where I use a lot of granted speculation, like very speculative, I think Thomas and Jill are married and they're the father of Daniel and Michael. They're the parents of Daniel and Michael, like Thomas is the father. But yeah, he appears like basically once. We know next to nothing about him realistically. Petscop Direct. I don't really know what this is meaning, so time to look it up again. We're on the last level of this second iceberg too, so I was hoping these topics would be quite obscure at this point. Hey, there's my video. A lot of this stuff is relating to like, oh, is Petscop real and whatnot. Does Petscop Direct mean? I mean, that's the AI overview says. I don't know if that was like, if that's what it's actually talking about. Well, that's enough surface level web surfing for that one. Could just be that there's certain parts of the Petscop where it's directly showing us gameplay like that AI thing was insinuating, or like, I don't know. Maybe it's just like Petscop directly given versus edited, because we do see many instances of the game being edited from like many different angles. So I don't know. Reborn Michael. So, there is a point where it mentions that Michael, like I'm paraphrasing here, but it mentions Michael goes missing. There's an emergency, and Michael A was gone. He's Michael B now. Which, given everything else in the series, a kid goes missing. It feels like it might be related to rebirthing shenanigans. I have a whole big explanation for it in my theory video or in my fan fiction, so check both those out if you want my in-depth thoughts on it. Mecha Jill? Huh? Wait, what is Mecha Jill? Mecha Jill Petscop. That video comes up first. That's nice when you look up Mecha Jill Petscop. What incarnation is Mecha Jill? Is that saying she's like techie because she's overseeing the ghost rooms, question mark? Weird. Mecha Jill is not something I expect to see. What is just think of like a cyborg Jill. All right, we're gonna leave that one alone. I don't really know exactly what to tell you on that one. Secret Nifty button. We talked about this before. Tony character. I'm gonna make sure I know what that is. I don't think I actually know what that is actually. Tony character Petscop. These lower layers are giving us some nice things. Maybe it's just talking about Tony the creator. He wrote Tapers, that's true. Yeah, he has some other works out there like Nifty and Tapers. Huh. Could just be referring to him himself. Like, it's saying Tony character kind of made me think it might go on like a different thing where it's like Tony had an insert character in the series, or there's this character that's meant to represent him or something like that. I don't think researching is going to help that much clearly. Usually if something doesn't come up like in some like forum thing or in the wiki, it's kind of just hard to come by. It might be obscure, it might be something some YouTuber reference somebody just talked about once in some thread. Some of these might be hard to find. 6/13/97 build. Do not research. I am going to research it, but I feel like I already said what this was. Like that date is the date it was given to someone. I don't know what it means, don't research. Yeah. I don't know why on earth you'd put don't research on that other than just to be like funny, maybe? I don't know why on earth you'd tag that one with do not research. Like you think it would be like Carrie Newmaker or something, you know? Not Carrie Newmaker, Candace Newmaker. My word, I'm blending fiction and reality. Candace Newmaker. You think that would have the do not research tag on it? That's weird. Oh well. Secret Guardian in Smash? Like Super Smash Bros? What? Is that saying like you can? That doesn't even make sense. What? Super Guardian Smash. The only thing I can think of is Smash Bros. What else is it talking about? Wait, Petscop Crusade mods? What is this talking about? Not gonna make a Petscop character. Just made the stage for it. Could we talk about a weird mod, a hypothetical mod, something like that? The fact that Smash is capitalized makes me believe that it is Smash Bros, because that's like the abbreviated word for it. Interesting. Tony's next project, he just did Red Workers Island or something, if it's called that. It hasn't gotten quite the popularity or notoriety as Petscop, so I haven't really made a video on it, just because like, just the relevance it has on the internet at the moment isn't exactly high, but I might make a video on it at some point if I have a kind of a lull between projects. Reward for 100%. This might be referring to either Book of Baby Names, the ending cutscene that's like as a gift at the end. Which actually reminds me, I kind of skipped over this because I kind of accidentally paired it. Now there's a kind of a recurring thing in Petscop where it says "and now," and then kind of shows something either big or important or something like that. I think it kind of serves as something that like, and after all this has come to pass, like here we are, like here's this, you know. In if you watch the whole series kind of like through and you get to that, it's pretty impactful to be honest with you. And the final one in this iceberg is winky face and description. And it says something, I know exactly what this is referring to. It's like there's a sentence that says, like, oh, we hope you enjoy these recordings of Petscop. Like, we sure do. And it gives a little winky face. I think it's there. It might also be in the description of the channel. Hold on, let me verify that. Yeah, thank you for watching, winky face. Maybe I'm just on about something about that other one, and it was actually a description the whole time. Hold on, let me see. Is it Petscop 11 that said that? Oh, okay, I was actually right about that too. Good. All right, well, I think I did pretty good on those icebergs. Few towards the bottom of this one, I had to start looking up, and honestly, most of them I even couldn't, garner much from the internet itself. But I think between the two icebergs, I got quite a bit of answers correct. Between the two of them. Yeah. Anyway, I thought this was a kind of a interesting format for icebergs compared to how a lot of icebergs usually go, where it's sort of like a pre-written script or a video essay of like the given YouTuber researching the topics. But since I've already done tons of looking into Petscop, I thought it'd just be interesting to do a more relaxed, like podcasty type scenario where I just kind of talk about each of them unscripted. And I liked the idea of just challenging myself to see how much I could talk about without, doing any research for them. So, yeah, that is the Petscop iceberg, or rather, two of the, I guess, biggest Petscop icebergs that I could find on the internet. That'll do it for this video. Please let me know if you enjoyed this format of iceberg. If you'd liked this type of iceberg, I even have some other ideas I might do with my guest that'll come on the channel, Legendette, who might accompany me for some other, icebergs where we do something similar to this, in that we kind of research the topics as we go. If you like this sort of like unscripted angle on icebergs. But yeah, if you like Petscop, if you like storylines, you like this kind of content, subscribe. If you're not, leave a like and comment just to help this video out. And tons of things you can check out by me. I write books, I write fan fiction, I write horror stories on Reddit. Obviously I make videos, I try to make weekly. I have a Discord server. I have an ARG of my own you can check. Tons of things if you're into this sort of content that you can check out and dive into. So yeah, there's all of that. Until next time, it's been Playmaster.